Okay, so here we are, RPG 101 once again, and today we're talking about clerics. What's so special about a cleric? Well, clerics in D&D are battle priests. They are the ones who go out on the front lines, preach about their god, undo the works of evil gods, demons, devils, things of that nature, and in adventuring teams, bolster the ranks. Sometimes they're also seen as walking band-aids and healing, walking healing tank, because they are the classes that gain access to healing magic at first level. But there's so much more to them than just walking around in light and medium armor and wielding a cudgel. First off, they don't just have to use maces, especially if they take the war domains of their god. They get access to the use of the preferred weapon of their god. For example, Corellon Lorethian, who we'll be using for more examples later on, his favorite weapon is a rapier, so priests and clerics and paladins of Corellon Lorethian gain the ability to use rapier if they don't already have it. Now, something else that separates clerics from wizards and sorcerers is the fact that they get domain spells. Domain spells are spells that are given to clerics in addition to their normal spell loadout that use a specific spell slot just for those spells. They can only be cast as domain spells. They can't be swapped out for anything else. They're just there to cast domain spells. Now, what are domains? Domains are specific fields of influence that particular gods have. Using Corellon Lorethian again, he has the spheres of music, arts, crafts, poetry, magic, and war. So, to choose domains, and as far as 3.5 goes, you get 2 domains to choose from. I'm not sure how 5th edition does it. I haven't really looked at the cleric very deeply. You get 2 domains, and you get domain spells from each domain every so many levels. So what is a cleric great for in D&D? Well, clerics are support characters. They have great spells for buffing. They obviously are healers, and most clerics get the unique ability to swap out prepared spells to spontaneously cast another heal spell. And that makes them a great healer primarily. But because of their buffing spells, they're also a great utility class. If they chose the war domain, they're also a great fighter. And in the case of the undead, they are the biggest bane next to paladins, because the paladins and clerics both get the Turn Undead ability. In 5th edition, Turn Undead has been renamed as Turn the Unholy, and it's been altered slightly, but it still serves the same basic purpose. You turn undead, and undead are forced to flee from you for as long as they possibly can. If they cannot flee any further from you, they cower until an escape route is shown to them. And if they are above certain levels, and if they're below certain levels, they may even burst into flame. Cool, huh? So, why do clerics travel? Why do clerics adventure? It's simple. There is evil in the world, and the clerics of good aligned gods go out to combat that evil. There's too much good in the world, and the clerics of the evil aligned gods go out to tear down establishment and build anarchy. At least the chaotic evil gods send their disciples out. The lawful evil gods just are confusing. The main aspect of a cleric is the worship of their god. And there are gods that are worshipped by all races in fantasy RPGs. There are whole pantheons of gods devoted to individual races. There are gods that have been worshipped once upon a time and have fallen out of favor. There are good gods, evil gods, ambivalent gods like Bahamut. No, not that Bahamut. This Bahamut. There are lost treasures of their churches that they may be on a quest to find. Some ancient scroll that tells of the deeds of a saint of their order, or relics that have been lost to the sands of time. Evil aligned clerics are out to revive an ancient god that has actually fallen out of favor and may have even been slain by other gods. There's any number of reasons why a cleric would adventure. When you're building your character backstory, there are so many ways you could give them a reason to be out adventuring. You can even draw from history of our world. The Crusades were mainly, it's more complex than this, but for the most part, the Crusades were over who was going to control Jerusalem. And entire bloody conflicts have been waged for that sole purpose. So maybe your cleric is a former crusader who's trying to redeem himself for all the atrocities that he saw, or maybe he's trying to do some good to rebuild the name of his church if he's following a neutral god like St. Cuthbert. Maybe he's heard of a relic that was stolen during a crusade or during a holy war, and he's off to go find it and bring it back to his church. It is more believable to find something that a cleric would go out to adventure for than any other class other than paladins and fighters. So how would I build a cleric? Well, first off, after rolling my scores, I made sure that after racial bonuses are added in, my highest score is in wisdom. Wisdom fuels the cleric's magic. After wisdom, I would put points in constitution and then dexterity. And I choose that order because clerics get to use medium armor, and there's very little armor at starting level that allows full use of your dex. And there are some that may only take 1 or 2 points off of your dex, but if you're wearing armor for its full value and you can't use all of your dex, you're going to be a little bit more cumbersome, so you want to be able to take a few more hits. That's the primary reason why I put Constitution ahead of dex in this. Intelligence would come next because you are a trained priest. So you're going to be moderately intelligent. You're going to be moderately well-versed in a lot of schools of research. And strength and charisma, it's kind of a toss-up. It depends on what I chose my cleric to be. If I chose a cleric of a god with a war domain, I would have put strength above charisma because I want to be able to go and wage the good fight for my god. Whereas if I chose a god and chose like the music domain, I may want to have a higher charisma score, so that in lack of a bard, I could be the talking member of the group, the one who shows up as the leader, the one who smooths ruffled feathers in certain instances. So it really depends on what gods you choose and what domains you choose. Now, equipment and armor. Clerics get use of up to medium armor and shields, small shields. They know all simple weapons and some martial weapons, and the favored weapon of their god. For example, again, Coralon Larethian, his favorite weapon is the rapier. Priests and clerics of Coralon Larethian automatically get the ability to use rapiers if they don't already have it. So why should you have a cleric in the group? Well, technically every group should have a cleric. It is one of the iconic classes, and whenever you pick up a beginner's box or a starter set, one of the sample characters they give you is always going to be a cleric. Because the standard class loadout for a small party has been fighter, rogue, mage, and cleric. It's been that way since the 70s. So with that being said, you don't necessarily need a cleric in your party to have a good D&D party. For example, in the game that I'm in right now, I play a paladin. I have taken the place of the cleric. I have healing magic. I have turned the unholy. I have, the worship of God behind me. And the only difference between me and a cleric is I'm a holy knight, whereas they're a priest. And we're doing just fine. I may not have the same breadth of healing and buffing magic that the clerics get, but I'm doing okay as it is. Another alternative option is a druid. The only difference between a druid and a cleric, again in broad, simple terms, is clerics come from established orders of churches, whereas druids are a more secretive sect that worships nature and gods of nature and forces of nature. The spell lists are completely different, but again, druids get healing spells at relatively low levels. They also have a lot of buffing magic, and they have magic that aids them in their fight to protect nature. Rangers are also a relatively good substitute for clerics, but they don't have as wide of a spell selection, and frankly, they're better off as support class and not heals. Where would I put a cleric? Well, again, it depends on how your cleric is loaded out. A cleric of a battle god will do just as well on the front lines as a fighter will, as a paladin will, as a monk will. A cleric of a more peaceful god, or that shows more peaceful domains, I would put him in the middle ranks. He's still going to be a decent fighter, and you're going to need somebody to keep people who break through the ranks off your mage. But again, and again, heals and buffs is going to be his main focus in this. At what point in time would I put a priest in the back ranks? If he's the only spellcaster. If you have a group of nothing but melee combatants and a cleric, he'd be all the way in the back, because he's probably going to be the squishiest person you have next to the rogue. So it again depends on how you build your character. Construct a good backstory. Construct a believable reason why he's out adventuring. And this is why in the early videos I said concept was such an important part. If you don't have a concept for why your character's out adventuring, then he's in it for the money. And that's a horrible reason to go adventuring. You know, have a reason. Be out looking for some relic of a church. Be out on a quest. Be out on a crusade. Be coming back from a crusade and wanting to wipe the blood from your hands, so to speak. All of these are good reasons to go out adventuring. So, next time you roll up a character, if you haven't played a cleric, consider rolling one up. Take a look at them in the book, and if you like what you see, happy hunting.